The rain had just started to fall, soft, steady, and cold. The kind of rain that seems to carry sorrow in every drop. A small, frail dog named Max lay wrapped in a thin blanket on the front porch of a modest countryside home. His eyes, cloudy with age, stared out into the distance, not watching the rain, but remembering something far deeper. Inside the house, Emma, a woman in her late 30s with tired eyes and a kind smile, crouched next to him. She gently stroked his head, whispering softly, "I'm here, Max. I'm not going anywhere." Section 1. The journey begins. Max hadn't always been this fragile. 15 years ago, he was the liveliest puppy in the litter, full of energy and joy. Emma had been just 23, fresh out of college and grieving the sudden loss of her father. On a whim, she'd visited the local animal shelter, and there, in a corner pen, Max had bounded toward her with eyes full of light and a tail wagging like it held all the happiness she had lost. From that moment, Max became more than a pet. He became her companion, her healer, her family. Through heartbreaks, new jobs, the long nights of loneliness, and the laughter of new beginnings, Max had been there. He'd sit by the door every evening, waiting for her return. He'd bark at storms and snuggle beside her when life got too heavy. But time, relentless and silent, crept in. Max began to slow down. His once bright brown eyes dimmed. Walks turned shorter, steps grew hesitant, and pain became a quiet, constant companion. A week ago, the vet confirmed what Emma had feared. His organs are shutting down. He may have a few days, maybe a week. Keep him comfortable. The words echoed in her mind as she lay awake each night. Max curled beside her, breathing slow and labored. And now today, as the rain fell, she knew. That morning, Max had struggled to lift his head. But then something stirred in him. He nudged her hand with his nose, weak but insistent. Emma looked into his eyes and felt something shift. A quiet message, an unspoken request. So she helped him up, gently placing him in the back seat of her old pickup truck, swaddled in his favorite blanket. She didn't know exactly where they were going, but she knew Max was guiding her. "Is there somewhere you want me to take you, buddy?" she whispered, glancing in the rearview mirror. Max let out a soft whine, his eyes gazing out the window. She took that as a yes. They drove through winding country roads, past golden fields and old barns. Emma glanced back often, her heart breaking a little more each time she saw how small he looked now. But his eyes were wide, almost alert, filled with a strange peace. As they drove, Emma remembered the day they'd first hiked the forest trail near her father's cabin. Max had been just a few months old, darting through the leaves, chasing squirrels, barking at butterflies. Her father had loved that trail. It was where they'd scattered his ashes after he passed. And now, somehow, she knew. That's where Max wanted to go. She turned off the main road, the tires crunching on gravel. The air grew cooler, filled with the scent of pine and wet earth. They arrived at the trailhead. Emma parked and walked around to the back seat. "Are you sure, Max?" she asked. He looked up at her, and with great effort, placed his paw on her hand. That was enough. Lifting him gently, she cradled him close and began walking the familiar path. The trees whispered in the wind, the rain now just a mist. Each step stirred memories, of laughter, of running, of a time when both of them were younger and whole. Halfway up the trail, she reached the clearing. The same spot where her father's ashes had been laid to rest. The view was breathtaking. Below, the valley stretched wide, green and gold under the soft rain. Birds chirped. The world felt still. Emma sat on a flat rock, Max nestled in her arms. He let out a content sigh, his head resting against her chest. She could feel his heartbeat, faint but steady. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "Thank you, Max. For everything. For every single day." Max looked up at her one last time, his eyes locking with hers. There was no fear, no pain, only love. Then slowly, he turned his gaze toward the valley below. And that's when she saw it. His tail wagged just once, the smallest flicker of joy. A final wish fulfilled. But as the wind picked up and the clouds shifted, Emma noticed something unusual. A movement in the trees, a soft sound, almost like footsteps. She turned slowly, heart suddenly pounding. Someone was watching. End of section 1. Emma froze. Her breath caught in her throat as she scanned the trees surrounding the clearing. For a moment, there was nothing, only the sound of raindrops falling gently through the canopy. Then, a figure stepped out from behind an old pine. It was a man, elderly, with a silver beard and a worn brown coat, his hands tucked into his pockets. He didn't look threatening, just familiar. Emma narrowed her eyes, heart still racing. "Can I help you?" she asked, holding Max a little closer. The man gave a small smile. "Didn't mean to startle you. I've been walking this trail for years. I saw you and your dog. Thought you might need a little help." His voice was calm, gentle. Something in it settled her nerves. She nodded slowly. "Thanks, but we're okay. He just wanted to be here one last time." The man's eyes softened. "He's a good boy. I can see that." Emma looked down at Max, who was still, his breathing slower now, but still there. She gently rocked him in her arms. The stranger took a step closer. "You know, I had a dog like him once. Looked a lot like yours, actually. She stayed with me through the worst years of my life. It's funny how they never ask for anything, but they give us everything." Emma nodded, tears forming again. "He saved me more times than I can count." The man paused for a moment before speaking again. "Would you like me to take a photo for you too? Something to remember this moment by." Emma hesitated, then nodded. She reached into her coat pocket and handed him her phone. She smiled down at Max, brushed his fur gently. "Hey, buddy. Let's take one last picture together, okay?" The man snapped a few photos, then handed the phone back to her. "He's smiling in that last one," he said. Emma's voice cracked. "He always smiled for the camera." The man looked out over the valley. "You know, people think dogs can't understand us. But they do. They listen. They feel everything. They even know when it's time to say goodbye." Emma nodded silently, overcome with emotion. Then the man turned to her once more. "It's okay to let go. When they've given us everything, all they ask in return is to know they mattered." Emma's lips trembled. She gently leaned down and whispered into Max's ear. "You mattered, Max. More than I can ever say. You mattered every single day." His breathing slowed even more. For a while, she just sat there, cradling him, her cheek against his fur. But suddenly a small, sharp breath escaped Max. His legs twitched gently. Then stillness. Emma felt the weight shift in her arms. She looked down. Max was gone. "No, Max." Her voice broke as she held him tighter, sobbing into his fur. The pain came like a wave, crashing hard and merciless. The man placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "I'll give you a moment," he said quietly, stepping back. The clearing fell into silence. Only the sound of the wind through the trees and the whisper of rain remained. Emma stayed like that for a long time, holding him, saying goodbye in 1,000 silent ways. Finally, as dusk began to fall, she stood up slowly, still holding Max close. She found a small patch under an old oak tree, the same tree where she and her father had once picnicked, and began to dig with her hands. Mud clung to her fingers, but she didn't care. The stranger silently joined her. Without a word, he took a small hand shovel from his coat and helped her. Together, they laid Max to rest. Emma placed his favorite toy beside him, a faded red ball, and whispered, "Run free now, my boy." They covered the grave with earth and surrounded it with small stones. The man picked a single wildflower and placed it on top. "Some dogs are sent to us for a reason," he said, almost to himself. "To teach us about love, loyalty, and how to say goodbye." As night fell, they made their way back down the trail in silence. Emma glanced one last time at the spot where Max now rested, her heart heavy but full of love. When they reached the bottom, she turned to thank the man. But he was gone, disappeared. No footprints in the mud, no sound of retreating steps. Emma looked around, confused. Her phone buzzed softly. She pulled it out. A notification had appeared, one she didn't recognize. A new photo. She opened it. It wasn't one she remembered the man taking. It was Max alone in the clearing, standing tall, young and strong again, staring out over the valley. The lighting was golden, almost otherworldly. She gasped. Her fingers trembled as she clutched the phone to her chest. Then she heard it, a soft bark, from somewhere up the trail. Emma turned slowly, eyes wide. To be continued. Emma's breath caught as the sound of the bark echoed faintly through the forest. She stood frozen, her eyes locked on the trailhead that led back up to the clearing. Her mind raced. Asterisk, did I imagine that? Was it just the wind? Asterisk. But there it was again, a single soft bark. Familiar. Hopeful. Without thinking, she started walking, then running, her boots slipping slightly in the wet earth. Her heart thundered in her chest. The trees blurred past her as she climbed back toward the clearing. The sky was darker now, with the last hues of purple and gold melting into night, but something was pulling her forward. When she reached the clearing, it was empty, just as they had left it. But the wildflower the old man had placed on Max's grave was gone. Emma dropped to her knees. Her hands shook as she reached out, brushing the stones gently. "Max?" she whispered, barely able to speak his name. The silence was deep and still, almost reverent. Then, from the edge of the trees, something stirred. A small gust of wind rustled the branches. And through the leaves, for just a second, Emma saw him. Max Young again. Whole. His coat gleaming, his eyes full of light. He looked at her, truly looked at her, and wagged his tail. Tears poured down her face as she smiled through the grief. "I see you, boy. I see you." And then, as quietly as he appeared, he was gone. A soft shimmer of mist replaced him, dancing with the wind. A warmth settled over Emma's heart, not in the way of body heat, but in the way that memories hold you when they know you need them most. She stayed in the clearing for a while longer, letting the quiet wrap around her like Max once did. Then she whispered her final goodbye. "Run free, Max. I'll find you again someday." Back home, everything felt different, but not in the empty, unbearable way she had feared. She placed Max's collar on the mantel, next to a framed photo of the two of them at the lake. She lit a candle every night, not in sadness, but in thanks for the years he gave, the love he left, and the final gift he shared. A few weeks later, Emma returned to the trail. This time, not in grief, but in remembrance. She brought a small wooden sign she had carved herself. On it, she etched the words, "Max's Place, where good boys go to rest." She placed it gently beside the oak tree. A breeze passed through the clearing, soft and comforting. Birds chirped in the distance. Peace had found its way here. Emma sat by the grave and spoke out loud, as though he were lying beside her. "You taught me how to be brave, Max. You taught me how to love without question. And when the time came, you even taught me how to let go." Her voice trembled, but she didn't cry. Not this time. Because she felt him, not in body, but in every corner of the world they had shared. In the wag of a tail she'd pass on the street, in the rustling of trees, in the quiet comfort of a night alone. And then, one morning months later, Emma walked into the same shelter where she had first met Max. The woman at the front desk smiled kindly. "Looking for anything in particular?" Emma hesitated for a moment. Then she smiled. "No, I'm just here to see who needs me." In the back of the room, a small puppy peeked through the bars of a crate. Shy, wide-eyed, with trembling legs and ears too big for his head. Emma crouched down, heart already stirring. "Hey there, little guy," she whispered. The puppy took a hesitant step forward, then another. And in that moment, something passed between them. Not a replacement, not even a new chapter, just love. As she held the puppy in her arms, he nestled into her chest, the same way Max once had. And somewhere deep in her heart, she heard it again. A soft bark. A final thank you. And in the quiet, Emma whispered, "You're home." The story ends, not with goodbye, but with love that never truly leaves. / End of section 3. The final wish fulfilled.